It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendo. Thanks a lot for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of issues. We have heard a lot of policy and talk from government in the last week, in particular from the petroleum, the PIA, which used to be the PIB. We've heard the central bank also issue directives in regards to forex and also banning certain apps and forex traders and all of that. So there's a lot of things to be talked about with our leadership and whether the Nigerian citizens and probably young people in particular feel that there is a leadership gap or a disconnect with the leadership and its people. So we're going to be joined by a couple of guests who can help us probably dissect a few of these issues. I'm joined by Ifeanyi Ekwere and Seun Awogbenle. How are you doing, guys? Okay, so my first question is to you now, and I want to start with this talk about government and, sort of what people have termed a constant shift in policy and how it almost confuses people. We did hear about certain startups or apps being banned during the week or sort of suspended or something along those lines. How do you feel government is doing with regards to connecting with Nigerians, especially in the last 6 years?
Talking about governance and Nigerians' policies and everything that has to do with leadership, to be sincere, a lot of Nigerians have actually lost hope. And I would say from my perspective that it's been a failed one because starting from our daily duties and then things that we expect should be a norm for the government to do as regards basic amenities when it comes to electricity, when it comes to security, when it comes to even road. Like, you don't expect an individual to fix road for the government, but Nigerians have found a way to manage all these things, and even setting up businesses in Nigeria, it's a risk because someone will wake up one morning and then just decide that I want to do this, I want to do that, without considering the adverse effects on the people, especially when it has to do with a lot of people being involved in that kind of business. So when it comes to policies and governance in Nigeria, really, I must say the government has failed the people, and we're not even expecting anything nice. So when we see something nice, it's like a miracle has happened. So Nigerians are really pained. And the most sad part about this is when we complain, we tend to adapt to the system after a very short period of time, because I don't know how that works for Nigerians, which of course I'm part of. We're kind of a resilient kind of people. We pass through this pain, we cry for it, and after a while, we adjust. It's bending us, but what can we do? Also, and then when it comes to involving people who should be in this space, we find out that even people who go to school these days do not believe in the Nigerian economy anymore, because you see people who are not even schooled telling you that it's a waste of time going to school because, of course, it's not valued here. It's not valued here. And then you find a lot of young people trying to leave the country. And with this going on, you find the government saying, oh, you people should stay, don't leave the country. But what are you putting in place for us? It's terrible, I must say, really terrible. And there's a big gap between the government and the people they are governing. There's just this big gap, very big gap, I must say.
Thank you. Let me go to you now, Seun. Seun, there's a lot of people who would say that, these problems are almost inevitable. We've had years and years of, if not decades, of terrible government, whether it's democracy, whether it's the military that has battered us over time. And so a lot of these complex issues are going to be, always coming up because government is still trying to figure out what policies might work. Also, let's talk about how we always complain about, we can't continue relying on oil. So, taxing would always be an issue. Government is constantly looking for new ways to generate revenue. As much as we say, entrepreneurs or young people are constantly, overburdened with bills and, tax from government. Aren't these things supposed to be the way a normal country should function?
Thank you, Ebuka. Yes, they should actually be. And as a matter of fact, Nigeria should begin to look beyond oil. We're actually in a post-war global economy, and it's actually important. I mean, take for example, Norway has outlawed oil, fossil fuel by 2025. Same for France, same for Germany, same for the UK, all by 2030. And for most of the countries of the world, the global economy is beginning to plan for a future beyond oil. But there's a point. You see, it's important that we all understand that we cannot isolate leadership from politics. As a matter of fact, the result of what you have in political leadership is always the function of either good or bad of the kind of politics that you have. And that takes me to the ban on some of the fintech and all of that. Like I have always actually said, politics underpins everything. Politics determines the outcome of our lives. It is what determines if we get access to fair wages. It is what determines if we get access to fair taxes. It is what determines if we get access to quality education. It is what determines if we get access to healthcare. It is what determines business and even tech. So it is actually important to isolate, our lives from politics. Politics affect all facets and ramifications of our lives. But what you have is that you have a situation in which, for the most part, we have decided, to completely, ignore that political space. So much that the politics can now be described as depressing because we do not have the best of us running our politics. And what you have is that when you have, the worst of us in politics, the result is always going to be one, that you're going to have a very sad and depressing political leadership. And in turn, you are also going to have a very sad and depressing, policy. Because, like I said, politics, leadership, then policy. Policy is always going to be the outcome of either, what's it called, the seriousness of your leadership, particularly their competence. And when we talk about leadership, there are things to factor. You talk about the competence of your political leadership. You must talk about the capacity of your political leadership. And you must talk about the character of your political leadership. And it takes me back to the question that you asked, Ebuka. Even if, we are actually trying to move away from oil, you see, there's what they call empathy in leadership, right? And there's also what they call consultation in leadership. You do not just by one fell swoop of a policy come in, wake up one day and say you are tired of this, and then you go to court and get all sorts of nefarious and completely obnoxious injunctions. It is sad because what I understand that what leadership should do is that when you see that there's a thriving space in your economy, then you interrogate that system. You don't just completely come and outlaw it. So that's what I'm saying. That you see, it has come to a point where we need to understand that if we do not all fix politics, politics will fix all of us. And to fix us in a very bad way, it will fix us in a very negative way, and we are all beginning to see the outcome of it, right? So it's important that no matter whatever we can do to actually save our politics, we must all do it. And when I say interrogating political leadership, it does not actually mean that we all have to go and join, partisan politics. No, but interrogating political leadership is as simple as asking questions. It's as simple as seeking for information. It's as simple as voting on the day of election. So basically, we can all engage political leadership without essentially having to join partisan politics. But we must also encourage the brightest and the best of us to actually go into politics, because it is the politics is leadership is the offshoot of politics, and policy is in turn the offshoot of your political leadership. So the good or bad of your leadership is going to be the result of policy. So regardless of, either we're in a post-oil global economy, there are still actually ways, and that's what you call gradualism. You don't completely come and say, oh, okay, the guys in fintech, we want to regulate. That's what you call gradualism, right? It's an introduction, it's an interrogation, it's an engagement. You must engage over time. You don't just wake up one day and then, kill businesses by just one fell swoop of policy. So my point is that whatever we are all doing, either in business or in tech or in all aspects of our lives, we must understand that political leadership has a big role to play, and it's a big factor in all of it, and we must take it serious now, not tomorrow.
Just a bit away from policy now, but you talked a lot about politics. I'll come to you if you just want to get a quick word from Shehu there, and something that is it fair to say, or is it right to say that a lot of these issues will probably never go away as long as we have this Godfatherism issue in our hands, where even if it's a 25-year-old or a 75-year-old in power, as long as someone puts you in there, you're going to always be answerable to someone. Are we going to be held down by this thing until we get rid of it?
Sadly true, Ebuka, sadly true. I'm a pragmatic, I'm going to be factual. You see, we have a situation in which our politics is actually not really about ideas. At the moment, our politics is not about ideas. But I give you the breakdown. Yes, the breakdown. The breakdown is that when you have weaponized poverty, what you have is that you cannot have a politics, or political engagement that is largely about ideas. Because the political elites have been able to weaponize hardship, and they've been able to weaponize poverty in such a way that if you ask an hungry stomach to pick between bread and book, an hungry stomach will pick bread over book any day. So now the point is that, one, we need to demonetize our political process. How many young people, how many 25-year-olds can actually afford to run for office? Right? How many 25-year-old can afford 50 million naira to perhaps run for, a state house of assembly? So most times you cannot, perhaps at the moment, Nigeria's political leadership might not be able to wish away the Godfathering factor. But the only way to actually wish it away is to emphasize at least three things. One is to emphasize that our politics must not be about ideas. Two, we must ensure and we must ask government to actually take the fight against poverty seriously. Because if you are going to, there was a time in history when only house owners could actually vote. That's because they understood, and I think this was actually obtainable in the United States at some point, because they understood that it's only people who actually have needs. You cannot easily influence those who actually have economic needs. They are not easily influenced, or they cannot be easily bought. Their conscience, you can't easily buy their conscience. And now you see the concept of vote buying has now become a major aspect of our election. We must also de-emphasize it. But the best way to actually de-emphasize it is to ensure that we ask government to take the fight against poverty seriously. And lastly, there's need for shared prosperity. Nigerians everywhere in this part of the country, either from Potiskum or to wherever to Asaba in the southern part of Nigeria, everybody should be able to live without having to essentially depend on having to survive. So you have a situation in which everybody is essentially trying to get by. So when you have a situation in which more than bulk of your population, the bulk of the population of Nigeria, the bulk of Nigeria's population are actually live on, more than 90 million or more than 90 million.
Okay. Sheon, we'll come back to you. I think we're having a bit of a connection issue with you. Ify, you wanted to say something before I ask you a question?
I wanted to talk about what he said as regards some Nigerians not participating actively in politics. Yeah, it's actually true. And then this, I think, is the ripple effect of Nigerians getting to solve their problems by themselves. Because, of course, like I said earlier, the Nigerians, the citizens of this country have actually seen that if you wait on the government, or if you wait for what the government are expected to do, at the end of the day, in quotes, you are on your own. That's just the truth. And then most times when policies are being made, it appears to be like citizens are not being considered, because I really don't understand why, like Sheon said, sometimes you have to register your business or a company name, and then you see big amounts to pay, and then you ask, like I keep asking, where do you expect a youth corper to get this money from, or where do you expect someone who is coming from a humble background to actually start from? Okay, so most times the reason why a lot of people are not participating in politics is because they feel that this thing is not for a set of people. And I think the poverty factor is actually one thing that has been affecting this course. So governance in Nigeria, starting from Godfatherism, if it can be handled, which I know in the next 10 years, what is 10 years? In the next 20 years, might not be solved easily. But then if we keep giving people the chance, because Nigeria is a great country, the kind of things I see every day on social media, the kind of things young people like myself do, the inventions and all like that, if people can be given, because I think it was yesterday, I was in a conversation with someone, and then we were just talking about the saying, leaders of tomorrow. I kept hearing this from while I was in primary school, secondary, university, and all like that. We are the leaders of tomorrow, but yet it's as if this tomorrow is not coming. I don't know, but the whole field system, the expectations that have been tied down and all like that is the reason why youths are not coming out there. It's the reason why people who even have the ideas are not coming out there, because the chances are not.
Sorry to cut you in there. I want us to, I mean, it looks like you're both unanimous in your belief that there is a leadership gap. Ify, what does a regular Nigerian do in a situation like this? Someone who's watching this show now and wants to sort of do something. What do they do?
Okay, what a normal Nigerian can do right now is you keep following people who are already there. You contribute, because I feel with time they may notice you, either through your intelligence or your creativity, or something different about you when they see your push and passion for it. Okay, and then through that means, because social media is the only saving grace for this generation to be able to do something out there, really. But then if you have the connection, or people from your local government where you could do some things and all like that, of course you join. I've also seen some smart young people who started NGOs even without registering it, because of course they don't have this fund, but they just start by doing some humanitarian activities, and then people support them, and then through that means they get into where they want to get to. So that's just the way I feel that a young person can actually do exploit in this generation as it is right now, because you don't have the money, you're just coming out from school, you have lots of things in your brain. Then of course, instead of using social media to insult people or talk about people in a negative way, you follow people who that you want to do something in their space, in their circle, and then with time they could just get your attention, of course. And then DMs too, of course, they might not, of people who are there already, on top already, might not be able to see or read through your DMs all the time. But there are some times where some comments can actually make sense all the time. And then I know a couple of, in quotes, celebrities who do that. Once in a while, they comment on people's posts back, oh, you're making sense. And when you're regular at this, you might just catch their attention. I think I've been a victim. That's actually happened to me 1 or 2 times, and it works. So that's just the only way. Social media is like a saving grace.
All right, thank you very much, Ify. Thank you very much, Shehu. Actually, we're done. We're out of time, but just one last sentence, very quickly. Are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful that someday Nigeria is going to rise to and take its place among the pantheon of great nations of the world.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. We're going to take a quick break now and come back. Please don't go away. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show